Tonight, deadly storms, tornadoes tearing across the plains. A scene of devastation in Sulphur, Oklahoma.
Downtown Sulphur is destroyed.
The town taking a direct hit. Dozens of tornadoes roaring across multiple states this weekend, impacting millions.
I'm Omar Villafranca in Sulphur, Oklahoma, where a powerful tornado ripped through the main street, flipped cars, and turned businesses into rubble.
Tonight, diplomatic mission. Secretary of State Blinken makes his 7th visit to the Middle East since Israel's war with Hamas. The crisis in Gaza, critical.
I'm Deborah Patter in Jerusalem, where Benjamin Netanyahu is facing mounting domestic pressure to delay a rougher invasion and make a deal.
Campus crackdowns. New arrest as colleges nationwide struggle to quell anti-war demonstrations. Plus, comedian-in-chief, President Biden poking fun at his age and his political rival at a night of glamour and glitz in Washington, D.C.
I've always done well in the original 13 colonies.
In 7 battleground states, new CBS polling tonight on the campaign fight. And later, her inventors call her lucky. Customers call her Rosie. Restaurant owners say she's the future.
I am Rosie, delivery robot. Welcome to our restaurant.
This is the CBS Weekend News from New York with Jerika Duncan.
Good evening, and thank you for joining us on this Sunday. Mother Nature struck with deadly and violent force this weekend as dozens of tornadoes ripped through the plains. The hardest hit state, Oklahoma. Take a look at this devastation. This is the small city of Sulphur, home to only 5,000 people, some 85 miles southeast of Oklahoma City. Much of Main Street, as you can see, reduced to rubble, lives shredded, at least 4 deaths reported in the state, including an infant. More than 100 tornadoes are reported to have struck since Friday, the flurries starting in Nebraska. And tonight, the threat of severe weather remains in Texas, Louisiana, Arkansas, Missouri, and Oklahoma. CBS's Omar Villafranca is in Sulphur, Oklahoma, and leads off our coverage tonight. Omar, good evening to you.
Good evening. Last night, wave upon wave of storms pounded Oklahoma. And take a look at some of this damage here behind me. Trees snapped in half. Behind those trees, buildings missing the roof, walls collapsed. Thousands of people are still without power, and many more are trying to pick up the pieces.
Large tornado confirmed on the ground, moving north just south of Sulphur.
Violent storms ravaged Oklahoma overnight.
Hey, listen to it.
The small city of Sulphur devastated after taking a direct hit.
All of downtown Sulphur is destroyed.
At sunrise, the widespread damage revealed. The tornado shredding buildings, turning them into piles of metal and brick. 19-year-old Addie Gordon was helping out at the local steakhouse when she heard sirens and ran for cover.
As we're running through the building to get down to that basement, the glass is all shattering out of the windows, and it's just like a bomb went off.
At any point, were you scared?
Oh, I screamed. I thought I was going to pee myself.
It's so much worse in person. Just so hard to wrap your mind around.
Dana Vanderver and Donna Lewis's business was wiped out one day after the store's grand opening.
It's too soon to even think about it, really. We don't know what we'll do.
Dozens of tornadoes ripped through the plains this weekend, impacting millions. In the city of Marietta, near the Texas-Oklahoma border, a tornado carved a canyon through this Dollar Tree warehouse. The National Weather Service says a preliminary report of this storm called it an EF3, and that's wind speeds of at least 136 miles per hour. And residents here are saying cleanup will take weeks. Jerika?
Yeah, those pictures say it all. Omar Villafranca, thank you. Now to the Middle East. Today, President Biden spoke by phone to Israeli Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu, warning once again about a new Israeli assault on the city of Rafah in Gaza. Also today, Secretary of State Antony Blinken left Washington for his latest trip to the region. Blinken is expected into Israel Tuesday. It will be his 7th visit since the war began in October. CBS's Deborah Patta is in East Jerusalem tonight with the very latest. Deborah.
Good evening. There is a flurry of diplomatic activity in this region this week in a last-ditch effort to revive ceasefire talks and secure a hostage deal ahead of a possible ground offensive in the southern Gaza city of Rafah.
The pressure is mounting on Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu. Anger over the government's failure to bring their loved ones home has spilled onto the streets as demonstrators have stepped up their protests, which more than once have ended in scuffles with police. Prioritizing a hostage deal over the Rafah offensive has exposed cracks in Netanyahu's coalition government. The release of the hostages is our first priority, said Foreign Minister Israel Katz, adding that would mean deferring an offensive in Rafah, where more than 1.4 million Palestinians are sheltering, a move vehemently opposed by Israel's more hawkish right-wing faction. With the threat of a full-scale offensive hanging over Rafah, people here keep asking, where will they go? Much of Gaza lies in ruin. The destruction on such a scale, it is uninhabitable. And there is nowhere safe to run to. This little boy and his eldest sister are beside themselves with grief. They've already lost their mother. Now their father's been taken too. My brother is just 6 years old, Zain al-Raith screams. He's an orphan. How do I raise him? The staggeringly high civilian death toll in Gaza has sparked nationwide protests at American universities, which have not gone unnoticed by students in Rafah, whose education came to an abrupt halt with the war. They no longer have walls to spray graffiti on, instead showing their gratitude on the tents they now call home.
Aid groups have warned that an invasion of Rafah would worsen the already desperate humanitarian situation in Gaza, Jerika, where famine looms.
Deborah Pato reporting in East Jerusalem. Thank you. In this country, anti-war protests on college campuses have grown nationwide. This is USC in Los Angeles. Police there and in other cities made over 100 arrests this weekend. CBS's Mark Strassman has more.
All the clamor on campus keeps spreading. A clash of more than ideas. Riot gear at Ohio State. Tasers at Emory University in Atlanta. Mostly pro-Palestinian protesters, at times scuffling with police, waved on by school administrators, with hundreds of arrests. Communities like the University of Texas turning on each other. Israel's war on Hamas has another front line. A free speech and hate speech campus debate that's anything but academic.
If you want to protect free speech, then you don't break up peaceful protests.
People didn't seem to be aware of how bad the situation for free speech and academic freedom already was on campus until October 7th.
Greg Lukianoff of the Foundation for Individual Rights and Expression, a group defending the right to free speech.
Do you have the sense that any of this is moving the ball forward?
Some of the ways the protest has been going on college campuses has been alienating more of the public than bringing it in.
On Columbia University's West Lawn, civil disobedience, this ongoing tent city, galvanized national protests. They want the university to divest investments in Israel and companies they say profit off repression of Palestinians. Dueling protests at Columbia, pro-Israel, pro-Palestinian, reflect a larger welter of opinion and emotion, passion and perceived prejudice.
People would be up in arms and protesting that right away, but because it's the Jews, I feel like nobody cares.
All this coast-to-coast commotion is well into its second week, and what began here at Columbia has now rippled overseas.
From Paris to London, university students occupied buildings and marched in the streets. They're echoing this U.S. student movement, at times a moment that's been unflattering, even dark, from intolerant protesters to stumbling universities.
A lot of campuses are teaching young people to think like activists and less like scholars. When you're reduced to just shouting at each other, that is a failure of some of the things that makes higher education so special.
Mark Strassman, CBS News, New York.
Well, anti-war activists rallied outside a hotel hosting the annual White House Correspondents' Dinner attended by President Biden. More than 100 people waved Palestinian flags, some shouting, "Shame on you," to arriving guests. Inside, a celebration of freedom of the press and a chance to poke fun at politics. Comedian Colin Jost joked about the president and the legal woes of his expected Republican rival.
Can we just acknowledge how refreshing it is to see a president of the United States at an event that doesn't begin with a bailiff saying "all rise"?
The president also spoke, landing a few punchlines of his own.
I'm a grown man running against a 6-year-old.
CBS's Skylar Henry was there. Skylar, it wasn't all laughs, though, in what will be a critical election year.
Yeah, that's right, Jerika. A bit of a balancing act, if you will. Still, though, it was a night filled with journalists, stars, and top political officials. President Biden poked fun at himself during his speech, but he also took verbal aim against his presumed opponent this November in what's expected to be a very close race.
Well, Donald has had a few tough days lately. You might call it stormy weather.
Amidst the jokes and jabs at the annual White House Correspondents' Dinner, President Biden detailed his perspective on the stakes for the upcoming election.
8 years ago, you could have written off as just Trump talk, but no longer, not after January 6th.
Former President Trump responded on his Truth Social platform, voicing his displeasure about the event and calling Biden, quote, an absolute disaster. With a little more than 6 months to go before the election, new CBS News polling out today shows a very tight race in 3 battleground states we surveyed: Pennsylvania, Wisconsin, and Michigan, states that helped Biden win in 2020. But registered voters say the impacts of inflation are looming large in their minds and add they aren't seeing an improvement in a post-pandemic economy in their respective states, sparking a downward trend for the president and an advantage for Trump as Biden trails in the polls with voters when asked whether which candidate, quote, understands the needs and concerns of people like you, an edge he once held in the summer of 2020 when voters were asked the same question. And former President Trump is looking to pick up on that momentum in those battleground states. Because his New York hush money trial breaks on Wednesdays, he'll rally in both Wisconsin and Michigan before being back inside the courtroom on Thursday. Jerika.
All right, Skylar Henry, thank you. Today, one of the best players in the history of women's basketball announced that at age 38, she's retiring. Candace Parker played 16 seasons in the WNBA, made the announcement today on Instagram. Parker is a 3-time WNBA champion and 2-time Olympic gold medalist. She said, quote, I will pursue business with the same intensity and focus that she gave basketball. Well, now to Japan in a centuries-old tradition, one that some parents might not appreciate. Today, massive sumo wrestlers in Tokyo and other sites across Japan made 100 babies cry by gently shaking or swaying them before an audience. Some Japanese believe the 400-year-old ritual wards off evil and brings good health. Straight ahead on the CBS Weekend News, all aboard the big gamble on a new California high-speed train. Later, looking for love in all the wrong places, our investigation of online romance scams. Then the latest in high tech in restaurants. Meet Rosie. In Las Vegas, construction has begun on what will be the fastest train line in America. CBS's Elise Preston has more.
The high-speed rail link will connect Vegas with existing train services in the eastern suburbs of Los Angeles. The developer says it will take about 2 hours to go each way. That's at least twice as fast as driving from LA to Vegas. The all-new electric train will zip along at 186 miles per hour. Secretary of Transportation Pete Buttigieg.
An estimated 10 million people will one day ride this line yearly, sitting comfortably on a new train, looking out the window at the Angeles National Forest.
This $12 billion high-speed system is expected to create 35,000 jobs.
The goal is to start running trains by 2028, when the Summer Olympics return to Los Angeles.
In San Francisco's Bay Area, BART used to be the future of public transportation.
These are the amenities that give people a new kind of transit experience.
But plans don't always work out. The last original BART car is now retired. In 1972, it made its debut, billed as a space-age system.
No swaying or jolting.
Outfitted with gold carpet, upholstered seats, and the promise of a train every 90 seconds.
Free of vibration. Quiet. Smooth.
But after more than 5 decades plagued with low ridership, rising crime, and aging cars, BART upgraded and rolled out a brand new fleet, helping Californians connect. Elise Preston, CBS News, Los Angeles.
Still ahead on the CBS Weekend News, an update on a CBS News investigation into online romance scams. All week, we've been taking you inside the troubling world of online romance scams. CBS News and stations reporters found courageous victims nationwide willing to come forward with their stories. CBS's Jim Axelrod reports.
From Colorado.
You know, he's always very romantic.
To California.
I messed up my life.
CBS News searched court cases across the country to find scam victims with the courage to share their stories. People like Connie in New York, who say for too long this crime has carried an unwelcome stigma.
Every day I beat myself up. How stupid are you, Connie? You're an educated person.
The Federal Trade Commission estimates last year 64,000 Americans fell for dreamy but fake identities online. 40% of the victims are men.
I believe this person. That's why I fell for her.
Anyone looking for love can fall victim.
They come from all walks of life. It's all ages. It's, 20s to 70s, 80s.
All education levels?
All education levels. You're talking doctors and lawyers to ditch diggers.
It happened to Karina, a California woman with a PhD.
I clearly so badly wanted to believe in the dream that he was selling me.
These organizations are sophisticated. They know how to defraud everybody. They're very good at it. That's what they do. They are motivated by money.
Romance scams cost Americans more than $1 billion last year. And this Texas woman reveals it nearly cost her life.
I felt like I couldn't live knowing that I had participated in something like that.
In this epidemic, advocates encourage compassion for victims.
The worst thing to do is to pass judgment, to make them feel stupid.
And urge caution for everyone looking for love. Jim Axelrod, CBS News, New York.
The CBS Reports documentary, Anything for Love, Inside the Romance Scam Epidemic, premieres tonight at 9 p.m. Eastern on CBS News 24/7, streaming on the free CBS News app. Well, coming up on the CBS Weekend News, serving the salsa and a lot more without the sass. Meet Rosie next. A new employee at a California restaurant is proving popular with patrons, even though she lacks a human touch. In tonight's Weekend Journal, CBS's Itai Hot explains how replacing people with robots is coming up rosy.
At the Cajun Kraken Seafood Restaurant just east of San Francisco, something's cooking, and not just in the kitchen.
We walked in and we saw it moving around. It was very exciting to see.
I am leaving for delivery.
Meet Rosie the Robot. She's been working here for the last 2 months now, and she's already a favorite among customers.
Rosie's cute. I like Rosie.
Very futuristic.
That's kind of crazy.
Waitress Michelle Magno says from the moment Rosie was powered up,
I am leaving for delivery.
not only has the service gotten better, so have the tips.
People are excited to see her. A lot of my customers call her by Rosie now.
Rosie delivers food, picks up dirty dishes, and runs promotions on her screen. She can't actually take orders, at least not yet.
I am Rosie.
The best part, she's never sick, she's always on time, and for the most part, doesn't have an attitude.
The meal you ordered has arrived.
Officially called Lucky, she got her nickname Rosie because she reminded customers of another futuristic robot.
Rosie, you are worth your weight in leftovers.
Thank you.
Seen as a solution to the industry's labor shortage, server robots are becoming increasingly popular, with tens of thousands gliding through restaurants across the nation.
I am Rosie.
And although they can do a lot, there's at least one thing they can't do.
A lot of people still need like that human interaction.
Welcome to our restaurant.
And while it may be hard for some people to digest, Rosie the robot is here to stay. Just don't push her buttons.
Now leave me alone. I have work to do.
Itai Had, CBS News, Concord, California.
A robot that's focused. Well, that's the CBS Weekend News for this Sunday. Tonight on 60 Minutes, the CEO of a world-leading technology company explains how AI is about to change everything. I'm Jerika Duncan in New York. We thank you so much for watching. Have a great week.